Brilliant. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me loud and clear. Welcome to today's law enforcement briefing. My name is Max, and we're obviously joined here today by my colleague Michael as well. And today we're going to be delivering the next webinar in our series aimed at helping you to stay on top of the new technology innovations that are happening within the policing space. So please don't feel the need to take any notes or absorb anything. We appreciate that some things might be more difficult to digest. So we'll be touching base after this with a recording of the webinar later today. And yeah, we'll also be following up with any unanswered questions and any additional support that you might be asking for. So yeah, if you do have any questions on that note, there is a Q&A section just at the top of the Teams chat here. So feel free to drop them in throughout the session and hopefully we'll be able to address them at the end. Now, before I go on to talk to you a little bit more about Bedrock, what I'm just going to do is take you through the agenda. So starting off, we're going to be talking about Briefcam, right? And we're going to be giving you an overview of the solution and its capabilities. We're then going to be talking about the features available for both live and post-processing analytics. We're going to be talking about how appearance search technology can be used to accelerate investigations and support police officers and police forces on the front line. We're also going to be talking about how this is being implemented currently and some of the work we're doing with police forces across the UK. So hopefully we'll be able to share some details there about our demo environment and also how you can actually get access to that to run either demonstrations or potentially POCs yourself. Finally, what we're going to be talking about at the end there is just some next steps, information about some of our upcoming events, and also if you're interested in the solution, what to do next and how you can contact us. So yeah, before we start, it's probably worth sharing who we are and what we do as a company. So obviously many of you would have heard of us before. Some of you might have actually worked with us in the past, and some of you may have actually met us at the security and policing event last week, where we actually showcased this solution. So great to see some familiar faces there. But so we are Bedrock. We're experts in cloud infrastructure, secure networks, and high performance surveillance solutions. So we work with organizations throughout the UK who have some of the highest security requirements. As a result, we work with pretty much every police force there is in the UK, and really the work that we do is completed with the aim of helping forces to use technology in a way that aligns with their operational requirements. As you can see, we've got a number of accreditations and partnerships with key vendors like Milestone, Bosch, Motorola. Briefcam should be on there as well. But we have these relationships and we leverage them so we can give you the tech that you need to achieve your objectives and the outcomes that you need. So obviously today we're going to be talking about analytics and the analytics solution in question. So without any further ado, what I'm going to do is hand over to my colleague Michael, who's going to take you from here. All right.
Thank you, Max. And yes, welcome to another webinar. Another quarter has passed by, and here we are again. So yes, some of the feedback from our previous webinars were that we've touched on certain things. Maybe we've run certain videos and demonstrations of some of the capabilities of analytics, but people wanted a little bit more information, a bit more of a deep dive, and maybe have a look at some of the features that would suit how you guys want to use it potentially. So yeah. I'm going to start off by having a little look at some architecture before we do. So Briefcam as a system is very much a modular system. It can be built quite small, relatively small. Don't get me wrong, it's a very intensive and hungry system. So we do have to build even single server systems with a pretty decent amount of power and certainly a lot of GPU as well. And we'll be talking about that in terms of the requirements for GPU in a slide two's time. So in the instance we've got here, we've got just a single device, and on that we've got our database itself. And we've also got the main management and video synopsis system, which kind of is where the clients will interact. And we also have our processing services as well, which are used to actually take in that video data and analyze that and tag it with all this metadata that we can then search against later. In bigger systems, some of those components may be split up and allow us to really scale up if need be. separate databases that are really secure and resilient, and also more video synopsis and web clients should we have a lot of clients. But certainly one thing we do often have to look at scaling on is our processing services. So if we suddenly need to be able, or yourselves need to process suddenly a lot more cameras, then we can stand up more video processing servers with more graphics cards, and we're able to process a lot more data, and we can scale that up and down accordingly. So it's very much a modular system that allows us to do that, which is great. As you can see from this as well, there's two ways of which we can ingest footage into this. One of them is directly from a VMS, and the other one is with video files. So we're going to look at that again in the demonstration itself. Excuse me. But we can actually take video from pretty much anything, ingest it into the system, and it will, again, look at that video, tag it with the data, and allow you to run searches against it. In terms of the VMSs, there's quite a huge range supported. There's actually around about 29 vendors with about 35 different VMSs, but I've just kind of put a small number up there of the big ones that maybe people have heard of before, in terms of a Vigilon and Axis and Genetec, Indigo Vision, Milestone, and so it does also integrate straight into Synectics Synergy 3 as well. In terms of Milestone, it is the highest level of integration that you can get between Briefcam and a VMS. It does include that single sign-on. So if you've signed on to your desktop, you can have that automatically sign into Milestone and also into Briefcam as well. And all of that controlled in the background in terms of what the users can get to and what they can do within both of those systems, all within one single login that would be done on the PC. Also, access to Briefcam would be via XProtect, and you're going to see that because that's how I'm going to access it today. And we can also get alerts that will come from Briefcam into XProtect as well. And we're going to see that today as well, because it's fantastic in terms of giving people access to information without them having to go straight into Briefcam or being that system as a separate system. They can do it all through XProtect, which is fantastic. So in terms of how we look at Briefcam, at the moment, we can obviously build that into our data centers. In some of our previous webinars, I've talked about some of our cloud versus on-premise versus our private cloud, which is what we have in our data centers. We've also talked about some other things as well. So we've got some previous webinars there that you may have attended, which is great. If not, then obviously reach out to Max. He'll be able to give you access to that, and you'll be able to have a look at those and get some more detail about how our private cloud systems can be used by yourselves. They are tier 3 data centers, so fully resilient, power, cooling, all the rest of it. Also, we've also got a PASF, which is certified with ISO 27001. It's got an on-site ARC, certified to BS 5979. And being a PSF means it's always checked and assessed by the National Police and Information Risk Management Team, which is superb. And again, we always make sure we are data engineers at the end of the day and network engineers at heart. So all of our data is always secured in transit from the source, whether that be cameras or through recorders, through to our data centers when we do that. So let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into the Briefcam system itself. It has 3 different modules to it. There is review, and that is post-process. And for those people who are using Milestone, they may have seen a thing called Rapid Review. That is basically that module directly into Milestone. If you do need any of the other modules, then you would look to using Briefcam itself. And that brings me on to the next module, which is Respond. Respond is very much live analytics. We can set up rules, and we can have that continually looking at that and analyzing things and then alerting into Milestone, for example, if required. And then we've got research. Not quite sure it's for you guys. You may have some use for it, which would be fantastic. But it can do things such as give lots of pretty graphs and charts, as you can see from that picture here. We can do show how many pedestrians are in an area over time, vehicles, all sorts of things. There's lots of other things as well for retail and in airports and various other things. So yeah, there may be some things that you guys might see in there and go, actually, yeah, there may be some analytics in there that we can put together, and that'll be really useful intel for us to know, which is great. So the main things we're going to be looking at today are review and respond. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how that's done. So generally within the system, we have to assign GPU to this process, and we have to assign a GPU to each of those modules, a minimum of 1 GPU. Sometimes we'll do 2, 4, etc., depending on how much we want to process. And we know a single GPU that is certified can process approximately 1,100 hours of processing per day. And if we want to do more, we just add more GPU and we add more processing servers. And we can do things, missing persons, vehicle searches, all sorts of things in there we can do with that. And we're going to be taking a really good deep dive into that to show you guys some of those things that we can do there. This is going to be a live demo. I'm not going to be putting in videos on, so that's going to be good fun to leave the safety blanket of a presentation and actually get into some software with you guys. I'm going to really look forward to that. So yeah, again, ability to perform live analytics using the respond module. Again, that's another GPU if we need it. And that one GPU can do approximately 24-ish cameras simultaneously. That'll depend on the workload and, you know, whether it's a 1080p or a 5 megapixel, etc., etc. But approximately. And we can do all sorts of things in live analytics. Loitering, crowd control, people in areas, people counting. We can also do live LPR, license plate, if we're searching for vehicles or watching for vehicles in an area. All those types of things we can do live. And we can have that alert directly into Milestone if needed. So in terms of post-processing, it allows us to search for more detailed parameters. Bear in mind, if you want to search for a lot of, certainly cross-reference lots of different things, we need a person of this wearing these types of things, maybe with this similarity, then it can take a bit more time than live, and therefore it might be easier and more straightforward for the system to do it post-processing, or it's something that's happened in the past. We can certainly do a lot of that live, but it can take about 20 seconds for it to do everything. Simple things such as crowd control, it can do a lot quicker, obviously. We can also search for multiple sources of video. So instead of just having one video and we're getting analytics off that one, what the system does is actually allow us to correlate all that. When on these different cameras in a system, where was that person or car or whatever it is you're looking for seen and at what times? So it allows us to give us a much better indication of movement over a time period. So post-processing is fantastic for that. So yeah, if anyone's joined a previous webinar, they may have seen this before, but it was good to just show some of these slides. So yeah, we can do all sorts of things in surveillance as well, such as understanding if certain vehicles are in certain areas, or are there certain hotspots where maybe people are congregating where you wouldn't expect them to, maybe outside a house or anything like that. Apologies for that, I just had something go off. And also we can also do things such as direction. Maybe there's lots of vehicles that appear to be going in a direction we wouldn't normally expect as well. So we can do lots of things around surveillance as well. So we're going to be taking a deep dive into Briefcam itself, as I said, and we're going to be looking at a couple of different scenarios that we've talked to, people like yourselves about, and said, it'd be really, these are the kinds of things we would look to use this system for. So we're going to dive out of the presentation and we're going to dive in to Milestone. So here's our Milestone system, our demo system. So I'm just going to park it up on the live cameras. I'm sure lots of people have seen this type of thing before, especially if they're using Milestone a lot. And we can see already a couple of little differences maybe from the systems that you guys have looked at. We can see we've got a Briefcam button. And we've got our alarm manager as well. You guys might have that, but you can see ours has got some hits against it, which is fantastic. So we're going to be looking at that shortly. So let's have a look in Briefcam. So into Briefcam we are. Access to the modules is here on the right. And we can see Respond's got a little red dot, which means I've got some alerts against it that I can go and look at. So in here, I've got a few cases I've set up that just so that we've got some realistic data. I'd also like to thank one of our clients for allowing us to connect to some of their cameras to pull some more realistic live data. So again, these aren't staged videos. This is literally video from some systems that some people who possibly on the I think they may be on, which is great. Again, thank you to you guys for allowing us to connect to some of these cameras. So I'm going to start by jumping into this case here. And you can see here, we've got approximately 30 cameras. The test footage we've taken is over an hour and a half. As you can see here, we've got approximately 107,000 different objects that have been classified by the system. So if I'm now going to be looking, so we're going to take a scenario. So the scenario here is that we've got a missing person and we want to try and find that person, and we've been told they were in this area at this time. So we've got a couple of ways of doing that. The way I'm going to show you guys today is I'm going to start by first, we've had some very, very basic descriptions. So I'm going to go into class, I'm going to change that to a man. And I'll be talking through some of these in detail later, but sometimes I can sit and talk about all the different things and functions. And actually, sometimes you want to go, actually, we're looking for this, this, and this. How would we do that? So we can look at all the individual things that this thing can do, maybe in another session one-to-one. But what we're going to look at is how to actually go ahead and do a realistic search. I'm going to do that. It's going to go ahead and it's going to just go off and cross-reference that, and it's going to come back with all that. So we've still got 40,000 hits there. Now we've also been given an image. It may be an image from Facebook, it may be an image from the family, it may be an image that we managed to get some CCTV off where the person works. So what I'm going to do there is I'm just going to go to facial rec. I'm going to upload. Now this is all the same person. We can upload multiple images and the system can assume it's different people, but in this case, all the same person. I'm going to select some of those images. And some of them actually, the originals, the person stood in the image was actually, it wasn't zoomed in. It was actually quite just a normal CCTV image that you may get from, let's say, place of works CCTV system of some description. And I'm just going to add that in. So it's going to upload to Briefcam now. It's also going to classify how good an image that face is. And that's a 2-star image. You may be able to see that. It's just quite small. So once I've done that, I'm just going to select that to say, yeah, I want to have a look at that. I'm going to leave these modes pretty normal for now, and I'm going to apply that. And what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and just do a check against them 40,000 remaining hits. And we've got 7. And we can have a look at that, play those back. And you can see there. And that's great. Now, the thing there, of course, is that there may be some images where Briefcam didn't think that the video was good enough quality really to actually get a facial rec. So what I'm going to do there, I'm going to select all. I'm going to add, once I've selected all, I've got these little icons at the top. I'm going to add these to appearance similarity. So what that's going to do is it's not going to use facial recognition here. It's going to say, I'm going to look for hits that look similar to this. Now it's going to come back probably with the same 7 because obviously we've not turned facial rec off. I'm going to turn facial rec off, apply that. Now I've asked it to do 2 things, so we'll have to give it a second just for it to kick through. Oh, it's done it. Okay. Cool. Now hopefully everybody can see that vast majority of the hits on that first top line are all the same person. There are a few over here that are not, but so what we can do is we can obviously, you guys, if you're doing an investigation, you're probably going to spend a little bit more time than I am on this. But bearing in mind, we've got 30 cameras for an hour and a half. We're talking a good 45 hours of footage. And it'd be interesting to know, maybe somebody can give feedback in the comments. That'd be pretty cool as to how long would it have taken to look at 45 hours of footage to find instance of this person. Once we've got that, we can carry on narrowing things down. We can choose color of clothing, long sleeves, that type of thing. But one of the things we can also do is just attach those we're interested in into a report. We can add to report, maybe give it a title. I've already done this. I'm not going to press add at this stage. And once we've done that, we can create that collateral of a video of that person. As we said, we can do all sorts of searches against individuals and types and things like that. If I just do that, just to clear things out, reset the filter. What we can also do is once we've got a set of search parameters we find useful, we may want to show somebody later without saving them to a report. We can always add them to a preset list. So the next time I can go missing person, apply, and it applies some of the hits that I had and some of the information that I put together and some of the search parameters. And then it will search against all those and come back. We can look at that later. Okay, I'm going to move on from that because bear in mind we want to take this deep dive and we've got quite a lot of things I want to show you. So I'm just going to reset those filters on that a minute. There we go. Okay, so for our next scenario, we're going to look at looking at vehicles and how we can search for vehicles. So we're looking for a particular type of vehicle here. I don't have any registration plate. I don't have anything of that at the moment. So I'm going to start off by looking at the class. And you can see here, we've got different types of classes, as we said, people, different types of two-wheel vehicles, and different types of general vehicles, boats, that type of thing. So I'm going to click on van. Well, we've got lots of vans, haven't we? So let's just choose a white one, which aren't they all? So we've still got quite a lot of white vans. Now I am looking for a cherry picker or a mute, and I can see there's a couple there and there. And if I play that, for example, that one back, I can see it's going. It did actually pick up a license plate, which is fantastic. Again, these are CCTV cameras. They're not designed for LPR, but if they can find it, they will find it. And you can see here we've got things that can help us. We could sit there, take a note of that number and go and do some things to get it into the system. But the quickest way is just to press add play. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow for a few mismatches. It did say that the last digit was a 2 and it's probably a Z, so it's a letter. I'm going to allow a couple of mismatches there. And I'm going to apply that. Okay, so we've got a few more now. And again, we can do similar to what we've done with people. We can do that. We can attach to similarity search, and we can start to take that initial finding and start to really drill into that. And find more objects. I'm just going to reset that because there's actually another way we can do that as well. Where if instead of us picking the first one in sequence and go, that's it. So if we weren't quite sure, and I've got all those hits, what I can also do, I'm going to pull a camera up down here. Maybe we're looking that one. Yeah, it is. So this is going to show you what video synopsis does. We've got approximately 15 vans, and you can see it's overlaying the vans. I'm just going to pause that a minute because this is a bit to take in. So with video synopsis, what it does is instead of us having to look at that hour and a half of footage off this camera and it shows us the camera, what it essentially does is it overlays all the clips of the white vans over each other on the image. So instead of having an hour and a half of video to try and get through, we've got 1 minute and 34 seconds. If I were to play that in double speed, clearly I could do it quicker. So I'm just going to set that going again. And what we're doing, I'm going to sit and watch potentially that 1.5 minutes. I'm going to speed it up because I want to get through this demo. And we can see here lots of white vans coming along. Okay, there it is. I did that a bit quick then, apologies. So what we can do is I can pause the video, select the van, and I can pull that van up and I can play back the video. I also managed to get a plate, so I'm going to go and add plate, and it's actually picked it up the right one. You saw how fast that van came through and it got the plate. So now I'm going to add that plate. So I picked the plate up that way as well. So there's lots of different ways. That's how quick that, oh, that was ×2. Don't want to fool you all. Yeah, so the van came through at a relative speed, and we were still able to get, and I can come out of here and it'll show me all the vans. Similar to last time, we can select all and add to a report. Once we've added it to the report, we can go over to the report up here. And you can see I added the missing persons and I added the white van. And with a bit more time, you're going to spend a bit more time than the whistle-stop tour I'm going through, building your cases up. But you can see how quick it is, even for me, just being able to do this on a very, very quick whistle-stop tour guide. And from there, we can export all that footage. You guys can do whatever you need to do and want to do with that footage afterwards, which is good. Cool. I'm going to show you very briefly a bit of heat mapping, a little bit of live after that. So I just need to go back to my viewer and clear this again. So the scenario for this one is that we had a report that a vehicle was driving in a pedestrian area. So we need to find that vehicle. Now, one of the ways we can do that, and if I just set this playing with 107,000, of which this one's got 4,200 hits on it, then you can see quite a lot going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple of things. On the left-hand side here where the video is, I'm just going to select the little overlay and I'm going to set activity. So what this is going to do is it's going to overlay a heat map. Now at the moment, okay, we can see that there's lots of things going up and down the road and there's lots of things going either here, which is fine. What I'm going to do on top of that is I'm going to now lay a quick region of interest. There we go. I'm going to apply that and see what that looks like now. There we go. So again, there's still lots going on there, but it's still been clouded by the fact we're looking for everything. I'm now going to change that to some kind of vehicle. There you go. So we can see a vehicle shot across here at some point. If I just come out of that. Sorry, okay, you didn't do it. Let's have a quick look. I must have got to save it. Oh, well, this is a live demo after all. So what happens is the car, obviously, that it's seen come into this area is that one there. So that's what I'm going to cover on review. And then in terms of respond, so the idea of respond, as we said, it's a live analytics. Now, the time taken for it to produce that and do that and understand that something that needs to alert on will depend on the type of analytics it is. Within 5 seconds, it can do some very basic things. It's generally about 20 to 30 seconds to do all of the filters we have there. You can run any of them live, but it will take about 20 to 30 seconds for it to process it and then alert. And then we've also got some others which are people counting, which it obviously does continuously and can alert pretty quickly upon. So we do have a few rules set in here on this demo system. So we do have things such as cars stopping in certain places. We've got gate exits. What we've also got is an LPR list that allows us to look at a watch list. In the case, just for this, we've just put our own company vehicles upon this list. And what we can do is we can alert against that. So if I just go across to the rules and I select vehicles. So we can see here we've got all of the vehicles that came as a hit as one of our vehicles. Some of them are staff, some of them are literally company vehicles. And we can look at that and we can see what it found against the watch list. And we can play it back and we can export and we can do all that good stuff pretty live. Now, what makes that great is if we have people who don't have access to Briefcam, but for example, you've set an LPR list to go against, what we can see is that those alarms actually within Briefcam itself. I'm just waiting for the alarm manager to come up. It's decided to run a little bit slow for me. There we go. So what I can do here is I can apply the filter, set it to a vehicle alert, and then I can see. Now what you'll find with this one is the playback is playing direct from milestone. So it will play back very quickly. I'll pretty much press it and it'll start playing that back. And it'll show me the reference image and it'll show me the vehicle. So in this case, it'll show me the vehicle coming in. So we can get alerts whenever any of the vehicles that hit our watch list come in. So we can do that with live, which is fantastic. So in terms of a demo, I'm going to probably wrap up that bit now because we are a minute over time, and I know I've got people staring at me down the virtual camera. So hopefully that was something that you guys found interesting. Hopefully give you a little bit of excitement about it as well, because I love just like working out how much can we make this thing do, how much can we achieve, and how can we be much more efficient at being able to get the information we need. In terms of implementations already, we're already currently in the process of implementing Briefcam for Cumbria Police, which will allow them to provide post-process and live analytics. We're in the process of delivering that to them at the moment. We are currently also building a demonstration system within our data center as well. The one you guys have seen today is the one that we have in one of our other comms rooms that doesn't have any public access. So we want to build one in our data centers and give some secure access to that, and maybe allow some of you guys to test drive some features, maybe do some slightly more tailored one-to-ones with you guys. So we're just building that at this stage. So with that, Max, I think if anybody does have any questions, then that would be a great time to, if anyone's got any.
Thanks, Mick. Yeah, I do believe we have a couple of questions in the chat, and I've also got a question as well. But we'll start with the those that have already been asked. So, in terms of platform orchestration, do you use any platform? Any orchestration platform in multi-server setup? That's a question within the chat.
It is. That sounds like if you were to build if you're going to build a multi-server yourself, as opposed to just building a single one. In our data centers, obviously, our engineers know far more about how that's set up than I do. Obviously, everything's all built in a virtual environment and things like that. I am aware that Briefcam and the way it's set up does mean you can do certain things orchestrated by it and its installation files and things like that. Something that I'd have to speak to them and our engineers about. They know far more about how that works than I do. Definitely.
Brilliant. And we do have a couple of more questions. So in terms of video feeds, how do you manage the video feeds with challenging light conditions or lighting conditions?
Yeah, obviously in terms of our demonstrations, we want to pull in as much collateral as possible in terms of video data and things, and we can test day, night, other such things. Obviously, anybody knows about cameras, and when it comes to nighttime, things are a lot more challenging. In terms of certain things, we find generally the more detailed things you're trying to do. So you try to do an actual facial rec, or you try to get an actual plate, then suddenly those things can be a bit more of a challenge. But your general day-to-day things, as the difficulty comes down, so to speak, in terms of just classifying objects and things like that, we find no problems with that side of it. But our intention is to pull as much collateral as possible and do as much as we can to try and prove and disprove that type of thing. As you saw, those cameras, they weren't in any special positions. They weren't, specially set up for the job. I know in surveillance, then you would hope to try and get those a little more squared. I also know sometimes you just basically sellotaping them to you're basically taping them to a branch of a tree. But yeah. Is that all of our questions, Max?
I believe we've got one more question. Do we support re-identification?
Re-identification, not quite sure what that means. We can certainly speak about it further if we can get a bit of clarification. I guess, is that where we've identified somebody and then we basically then put them back through the system to see if they'll turn up again? Yes, it's a simple answer to that. So if we've got, if that's what you're asking, then when the person comes in the first place and you see them, Briefcam, it tells us whether or not it's got a similarity or whether it's got a facial rec. If it's got a facial rec, then we can actually take that image and put it back through the system and then ask it to go search for more of them. If it's similarity, then obviously you can do the same. So we can certainly do that. Minimum resolution. Yeah, so somebody else has asked what the minimum resolution is for footage. So I did cover that in another webinar. Ideally, I can't remember what that is. So in terms of object classification, so there's something there and we can classify that as a car or a person and very basic stuff. It's around about 72 pixels per meter or something like that. Like I say, I go into some details in one of my other webinars, a bit more on camera setup and things like that. Reach out to Max, he can send you that webinar, that'd be cool. But if you're going further into actual facial recognition, then it's a lot more than that. I think it's about 172 or something like that. It's quite a few more pixels per meter, which is generally how we do it. Yeah, I'm sure we can get that to you, and you can have a look at that webinar. Fantastic.
Sounds good to me. I've got one question actually, just from myself, really.
Okay.
In terms of this solution being cloud hosted, what are some of the benefits to hosting, not just in our data center, but also from a cloud perspective?
Yeah. Again, I've done a webinar on cloud versus on-prem versus private cloud, which is what we have. It's our own data centers, as I said. Some of the main benefits, obviously, as we said, it's a power-hungry system. So therefore, the investment in hardware can be pretty steep. And then ongoing, you know, if this thing works well, you need to process more, or you've got a murder and suddenly you've got to process huge amounts of camera at once, potentially. Then your ability to scale as well. So as I noted before, if suddenly you need to process more data quickly, then we can run up more processing servers and give your main system a lot more grunt to be able to deal with that. So those are the two main things, I think, Max, is mainly those. Is that cost and that scaling is probably the biggest things, definitely.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's really useful to hear, and thank you again, Michael, for taking us through that. I certainly found it really interesting.
No, fantastic, and thank you to everybody. I know we went over by a few minutes today, but yeah, when we get into the actual software and we actually get into using the systems, then there's obviously quite a lot we can go through. Yeah, but thank you.
Brilliant. So if anybody would like to learn more about this solution, or potentially have a demonstration on a one-to-one basis, or even talk about some of the benefits in more detail, we will be following up with each of the attendees after this event to hear any feedback and potentially book in any meetings. On a separate note, I just wanted to mention that this is obviously one of many webinars in our series aimed at kind of enabling the law enforcement organisations across the UK. So we've got another session on the 29th of June, so a few months away, plenty of time to prepare and get it in the diary. We would obviously advise people to get booked up as soon as possible, but we will be touching base with you with further information on that. And that brings us to the end of the session today. So thank you so much for everyone's time. If we do have any more questions, we will be again following up with you after this. Thank you very much for joining us today. All right, take it easy.